Are you ready for a Christmas movie that will warm your heart in this chilly weather? Well, you're in luck, because Northern Lights of Christmas is just the movie for you. The movie begins with a scenic view of the city, just 2 weeks away from Christmas. Crowds of people are gathered around to celebrate the festivities and enjoy an evening on the ice rink. But some people don't have the time to lounge around and have fun, including our protagonist, Zoe, who just got off from her work as a pilot. She comes across a mother and her child, and the latter excitedly asks her about her job. As it turns out, the young girl is keen on becoming a pilot. Happy at the display of enthusiasm, Zoe hands the girl a pair of miniature golden wings, which she says will act as a lucky charm. They wish each other Merry Christmas and part ways. It seems like Zoe's excited for the holidays despite her grueling schedule. She runs into yet another person, her friend Phil. After they chat about his charter business and plane auctions, Zoe finally makes her way to her apartment. Zoe makes her way through the large stack of letters she's accumulated, seemingly eager to find something. And find something she does. Apparently she's just inherited a ranch from a man named Gus, who was practically a grandfather to her. She calls her parents to tell them the news, and they help her through her complicated emotions. She finds it tough to imagine going to the ranch and not finding him there, but her parents reassure her that it's what Gus wanted. After all, Gus taught her how to fly, and they all know how important being a pilot is to Zoe. When her father suggests selling the ranch to afford her own plane, Zoe insists that she'd rather have Gus back instead. Clearly, the man meant a lot to her. But it seems that she's going to go through with her father's plan after all. In fact, she's flying out to Alaska tomorrow to check on the ranch one last time before it's put on the market. She'll only be there for 1 week, so she'll be home in time to spend Christmas with her family. Or at least, that's what she promises them. The next day, Zoe arrives in Alaska bright and early. After taking a taxi to where she'll be staying, she comments on the strange man she sees on a motorcycle, noting how unusual it is to ride a bike in the snow. Before we can find out more about that, we're brought inside a cozy little diner. As the patrons argue about the dessert menu, Zoe sneaks up behind Anya, the woman who began the discussion, and surprises her with her arrival. Zoe also greets Brock and Otto, but the older man doesn't seem to remember her. As the four converse, we learn a lot about Zoe. She was best friends with Anya in high school, and, as Otto notes, was Gus's best student. Zoe meets her former teacher, Mr. Walker, on her way out. She asks her if she'll make it to the Christmas festival this year, but Zoe tells her that she won't be staying for long. After the friendly exchange, Zoe heads to the bank, where the property is officially put under her name. Zoe tells Karen, the banker, that she wants to start her own charter airline, which is partially why she has a plane on her card. The other reason is because she loves flying. Zoe asks Karen if she can recommend a real estate agent, and the latter reveals that it's her second job title. Karen tells her she'll go through her buyers, but there's a chance she won't be able to sell the ranch until spring. Zoe expresses her concern about the ranch lasting through the rough winter with no one there to care for it. To her delight, she discovers that the caretaker, Alec, will take care of it for her. He's been helping at the ranch for a while now. The two drive to the ranch, and we finally get to set our eyes on its beauty. Zoe is obviously enamored by it, and she tattles off about the soft spot she has always had for the place. She'd love to keep it, but her life is in Seattle. She can't stay in Alaska forever. In a clearing ahead, Zoe spots a few Christmas trees. We come to discover that Gus planted one for every year of marriage to his wife, Ida. Karen finds a photograph of the day Zoe got her pilot's license as Zoe parades around the house, ecstatic to be back. In the kitchen, they discuss how much money and effort Gus put into making the space perfect for Ida. Slowly but surely, Zoe begins having second thoughts about selling the place. Through the kitchen windows, she spots two reindeer, Holly and Palmer. Holly is a 15-year-old reindeer who Gus found and raised since infancy, and she holds a lot of sentimental value to Zoe. As the girls talk about the reindeer, Alec makes a loud entrance. Loud because of the motorcycle he arrived in, of course. As it turns out, the strange man Zoe was eyeing at the beginning of the movie was him, after all. After the two shake hands, Alec cuts right to the chase. He asks her if she's staying or selling, and she answers firmly, telling him she's selling. Alec doesn't seem too happy to hear that, but he knows it's not his decision to make, and he scurries off to make some repairs around the ranch. It's dinner time, and Zoe has made plans with Anya and Brock. As they set up the food, Anya tries to find a secret Christmas cookie recipe that Ida left, but despite digging through her cupboard, she's unsuccessful. Zoe tells them about Alec, noting how aloof he came off. Brock defends his honor, claiming that he's a nice guy. After some more chit-chat, the three sit down for dinner. The next morning, Alec comes around bright and early, knocking on Zoe's door and telling her he's there to feed the reindeer. She decides to join him and makes her way to the barn, where she excitedly goes over the Christmas decorations stockpiled there. But Alec is not amused by her antics. It seems he only cares about getting the reindeer fed. He talks her through the reindeer's feeding routine, and mentions some of the utilities that she'll need to keep an eye on. Before leaving, he hands her an envelope full of cash. She hasn't got the memo yet, but he's not staying around for his carekeeping duties anymore. She follows him outside, questioning why he's leaving. She doesn't understand why he won't stay and take care of the ranch throughout the winter, given that he'd be paid for it. He finally opens up, revealing his frustration with her decision to sell the ranch. Gus loved the place, he put his heart and soul into it, and Alec can't believe she's going to sell it. She argues that Gus left it to her so she can sell it and buy a plane. But Alec isn't convinced. They're at a crossroads, and Zoe desperately needs to convince Alec to keep the job. She promises she'll sell the ranch to someone who will cherish it. He won't budge, so she comes up with something quick, asking him if he'd want to be involved in the sale. That way, they can find a buyer that Alec will be satisfied with. She'll also give him 10% of the revenue if he stays until it sells. Zoe's heartful and well-put speech wins Alec over, and they shake hands to seal the deal. The two walk around the ranch, discussing the arrangements they can make the ranch more appealing to buyers. Zoe is a huge Christmas fan, so she suggests putting lights and Christmas trees all over the place. Alec isn't too keen on the holiday, but he doesn't object. His icy exterior is beginning to melt away thanks to Zoe's warm presence, despite the chilly winter weather. They begin clearing out the barn, with Zoe promising to find the reindeer a good home. After spotting a photograph that Gus took, they talk about the equipment she saw back inside the house. It turns out that photography was Gus's hobby. Zoe goes to the hardware store to buy a new thermometer, but when she steps inside, her plans are thrown out the window. She can't contain herself when she sees the myriad of Christmas decorations and goes all out, buying what looks like half the store. At the till, Karen runs up to Zoe, telling her they need to talk. She's found a prospective buyer for the ranch. With some newfound hope that the ranch will be sold, Zoe decides to buy some Christmas trees to make the place more enticing. When she's back at the ranch, Alec is perplexed as to why she bought a tree, given that they have dozens of them around the ranch. He doesn't look happy to hear that they'll be having the buyer come by to check the place out tomorrow morning. Zoe's attempts to befriend Alec continue, but he seems to have regressed a little. He's back to answering her questions with a straight, uninterested face. In Zoe's defense, at least her terrible singing puts a smile on his face. The next day, the buyers, the Usbons, make it to the ranch. Right off the bat, one of them tells Zoe that the place checks off all of the boxes. Zoe's a little skeptical to hear that they used to have a ranch in Montana that they abandoned. They find Alec outside the barn, and the man explains that he plans to fill it with winter sports equipment. Basically, the reindeer will need to go. After the Upsons leave, Zoe tells Alec that they're interested in buying the ranch as a vacation house. In fact, they're willing to make an offer pretty soon. To no one's surprise, Alec isn't happy to hear that at all. Even when she tells him that Gus's plane is going to go on auction soon, and that she plans to place a bid, he doesn't budge. Instead, he complains about the Upsons, saying they'll decimate the entire ranch to fit their taste. Referencing the partnership they made, he outright refuses to sell it to them. The next morning, Alec finds Zoe in the barn bright and early. She discloses that she agrees with his opinion on the Upsons. She thinks the ranch won't last long in their hands, and that's not what she wants for Gus's place. Despite having to let their best prospective buyers go, Zoe is determined to show the best side of the ranch to get some new offers. She has a great plan in mind, reviving Gus's Christmas festival to bring in a crowd of people. They only have 9 days to set up the place, but with some reluctance, Alec gives the plan the go-ahead. To spread the word about the festival, the two head over to the town square and hand out flyers. To their luck, tons of people pick up the flyers, and she runs into some acquaintances. This includes Zoe's friend Samantha, who promises to handle the booths at the ranch. Now at the diner, Zoe makes small talk with Anya, who asks if she can be in charge of the food. Clearly, the whole town is excited for the festival's revival, and they're all chipping in to make it happen. Zoe reunites with Jeff, the man currently responsible for Gus's plane, which is apparently in great condition. He also tells her that there's a reindeer in the way of the plane's landing strip. Naturally, Zoe and Alec head over to go get Palmer, who has made a habit of escaping the ranch lately. At the landing strip, Zoe tries to coax Palmer into coming back to the ranch. Despite her failure, she manages to fall into Alec's arms. It's a win in her books, judging by the love-struck look on her face. Alec is obviously the better reindeer wrangler of the two, and he manages to clip Palmer's leash on. That's when the owner of the airstrip, Chuck, comes out to welcome Zoe back to Alaska. But the welcome isn't all warm, as he tells her that she's being fined for Palmer's obstruction of the airstrip. Back at the ranch, Zoe is on the phone, reassuring her mom that she'll be back home in time for Christmas. Alec and Zoe busy themselves with the Christmas decorations for the next few days. The journey has its drawbacks, both to Zoe's morale and her plane funds, as she finds a lot of use for her debit card. When she complains about this to Anya, Otto reminds her of the barn dance and the Christmas star that Gus used. When Zoe goes back to the hardware store to buy some flooring for the bar dance, the clerk offers to set up a booth for the festival. Zoe is more than happy to accept. When Zoe's back at the ranch, she asks Alec about the Christmas star. He tells her that it's about 150 miles away right now, a distance they can't drive in this weather. She's disappointed, but the look on his face tells us that he has something in store for her. The Christmas lights that Zoe ordered are here, and she has some heartfelt conversation with Alec as she ties them around the trees. He tells her about how he spent his life traveling all over the place until he met Gus. It's evident that he misses the older man. He talks about him in the ranch with genuine appreciation and love. Zoe shares his sentiment, to Alec's surprise. He didn't expect her to want a quiet life in a ranch. When they're finally done setting up the lights, Alec snaps a few pictures of Zoe with his fancy camera. The pair are slowly becoming close. Close enough for Alec to reveal even more about his past. It's his first time decorating a Christmas tree. His mom passed away when he was a baby, and his father wasn't the festive type. He did buy him a camera as a gift once, though, and that's when his hobby started. Zoe, on the other hand, received flying lessons as a Christmas gift once, at 14 years old. Just as Alec leaves, Zoe receives a call from Karen, who tells her that a hotel firm reached out with an offer. The last time they reached out was to Gus, who declined, which makes Zoe skeptical about the deal. Still, she promises to think about it. On her way back inside, Zoe sees the wreath that Alec left for her on the front door. Aiming to reciprocate his present, she leaves him a Christmas tree by the barn, an action he finds charming. But it seems that he wants to one-up her, so he goes to Jeff's house and asks for a mysterious favor. The mysterious favor is revealed the next morning when Chuck calls Zoe and asks her if she can sub in for Jeff today. To no one's surprise, Zoe is over the moon to hear this, and plans to rush over to the airstrip. Unfortunately, her Jeep is busted, so Alec takes her there on his motorcycle. At the airstrip, Chuck runs her through the details of her flight path today. Given the volume of boxes she'll need to handle, Chuck suggests that she brings Alec along. Though he puts up a fight, since he's never been on a plane before, he ends up accepting his fate. All it takes is mentioning how he can get some great shots from the plane. Though he's nervous for the duration of the flight, she talks him down from his nerves. He takes a number of incredible pictures of the mountains. Zoe's happiness is clear as day on her smiling face. She's missed this. At their last stop, Alec surprises her with Gus's Christmas star. I knew he wasn't going to let us down. Zoe is in awe of the grandiosity of his gesture. Her appreciation for him just keeps growing. She knows that he talked Chuck into letting her fly the plane today, and she thanks him for it in the midst of the gorgeous northern lights. Up close and personal up in the air, it's a sight to behold. But no matter how beautiful the view is, Alec only has eyes for Zoe, if his camera is anything to go by. The next day, the two get even closer over their Christmas decorating activities. It's a wonder how they haven't kissed yet, given the proximity with which they always gravitate around each other. She finds the postcards that she sent Gus and Ida over the years. Alec reassures her that Gus knew how much she loved him, despite how busy she was with her work. This is the first Christmas that she won't be sending them a postcard for, and she's choked up about it. When Alec asks her if she'll be spending Christmas there, she explains that she always spends Christmas with her family. All he can do is smile and nod, despite his disappointment. But when she tells him that she won't be coming back after because she has to work, he can't fake his expression. With a bitter laugh, he tells her that he'll be moving out once the place is sold. The awkwardness of the conversation doesn't go over Zoe's head, and she works through her emotions by talking to the reindeer, who doesn't love healthy coping mechanisms. It seems like Alec is in for some therapy too. As he gets his caffeine kick in at the diner, Anya urges Brock to talk to him about the sour look on his face. She hasn't seen him this depressed since before Zoe arrived. As expected, Alec isn't willing to open up about his feelings, so instead, he tells Brock about his plans to move once the ranch is sold. Brock knows how much he loves the town, but when he offers to find a place for Alec to move into, the latter declines his generosity. Alec loves the ranch, and he sees no point in being in Alaska if it's gone. The festival's in 3 days, and the whole town is hyped, if the number of excited people Zoe bumps into is any indication. Zoe seems to have a shopaholic streak lately. She just can't decline the offer for the red dress that Mr. Walker makes her, despite already having an outfit for Christmas. The next morning, the representatives of the hotel company are at the ranch, and they're talking about future plans for the place. Right off the bat, Zoe doesn't like where this is going. Gus and Ida's trees are missing from the makeshift ranch that they made for the videos. The ranch and the trees are too special for Zoe to sell them to uncaring hands, and she makes that clear to the representative. Luckily, she seems to understand where she's coming from. Surprisingly, Alec is the one who convinces Zoe that they should take up the offer. They'll have to replant the trees, but change is inevitable, he says. He reminds her that she'll have enough money to buy the plane if the sale goes through. She won't have to bother with the Christmas festival either. But the town has clearly nestled itself even deeper into Zoe's heart these past few days. She's as invested into putting the festival on as ever, but she wants to honor their partnership too. Together, they decide to put on the festival. The next day, Anya and Brock are at the ranch, helping with the preparations. Anya offhandedly suggests that Zoe runs the ranch as a bed and breakfast. But Zoe's already made up her mind about going back home and returning to her job as a pilot. Somewhere in the conversation, Zoe starts looking for Ida's cookie cutters. When she pulls out a box from the drawers, she finds Ida's secret cookie recipe. The secret in question: cornflake cereal. Before the women get to baking, Zoe gets a call from Chuck. Palmer's snuck out of the ranch like a teenager again. And that's yet another find for Zoe and her dwindling finances. When the two get closer to Palmer to take him back home, they finally find what Palmer has been sneaking out for, another reindeer named Sadie. As it turns out, the two reindeer came from the same place. They might have known each other as babies. How cute. Zoe, ever the opportunist, asks Sadie's owner if he's willing to take Palmer and Holly in. She hasn't had time to look for someone to relocate them to in the midst of her business. Her offer is shot down, but we discover that Zoe was more interested in reuniting Sadie and Palmer than she was in selling her reindeer. The three reindeer look cozy in the barn, so we shouldn't blame her. Some couples are just meant to be, or at least Alec thinks so. Some final arrangements for the festival are made. Zoe convinces Alec to let her display his pictures on the wall. Meanwhile, the booths set up outside look enticing. But Zoe and Alec's dreams are about to be crushed down. A huge tree just fell on the main road, and the moving crew needs a day to clear it. That means no one can make it to the festival. They'll have to cancel the festival, right? Well, not on the town's watch. Dozens of people pull up in their jeeps, equipment in hand, ready to move the tree out of the way. Most surprising of all is Zoe's parents, who run up to her eagerly. They just couldn't spend Christmas apart from her. The festival is a huge hit, and it seems like the entire town has shown up. Zoe promptly puts Alec in a Santa suit. It's not Christmas without the bearded man, after all. We've made it to the famous barn dance, and it's spectacular. Zoe makes her way to Alec in a magnificent red dress, and he can't take his eyes off her. She takes up his offer to dance, and the two adorn huge smiles the entire time. A speaker takes the podium, thanking Zoe for reviving the festival. He also thanks Alec for making the whole thing possible. They also applaud his photography, which seems to be a hit amongst the guests. Alec goes to get something from the back, and when he makes his way to Zoe again, he covers her with a Mrs. Klaus cape. It's a silly piece of cloth, but it fits the theme well, and she's happy to wear it. They make their way outside, and lo and behold, the Aurora Borealis lights are out on full display. Days from the wonderful evening that they just spent, the pair start to kiss each other. To no one's surprise, they're interrupted by Karen and the hotel representative, who she's gotten buddy-buddy with. She's ready to make a formal offer tomorrow morning. The hotel firm is willing to make the Christmas festival an annual thing, and they'll even keep the Christmas trees. Zoe is shocked, but behind her, Alec looks more disdainful than anything. She immediately consults with Alec about the deal, but despite his insistence that she should take the offer, his face is the picture of sadness. The next morning, Zoe's mom bids her goodbye. She's on her way to sign the contract, but by the looks of her face, you'd think she was going to a funeral. Ever her mother's child, Zoe sits down and spills her fears and doubts to her. She'd always thought that she had her entire life planned out, but her visit to Gus's ranch changed everything. She loves everything about her life here, the town, the ranch, the reindeer, and the people. Her mother gives her the final push for her to stay. She doesn't have to leave this place and get her heart broken. Her mom reassures her. Outside, Brock and Alec are packing up what's left of the barn. Upon seeing Alec's fond gaze that he sends Zoe, Brock urges him to tell her how he feels. Shockingly, Alec doesn't try to deny or hide his feelings this time. He simply says it's too late. On her way to the bank, Zoe runs into some of the festival goers, all of which congratulate her for the huge success. It's the final push Zoe needed to convince her to stay. When she steps into the office, her soul is full of determination. She tells them that she's keeping the ranch, sorry to the hotel firm. She's finally found where she belongs, after decades of travel and unfamiliar places she couldn't ever call home. Her heart is here, not in Seattle, and she's ready to call the ranch home. She runs into Jeff on her way back, and he brings her some good news. Chuck is retiring, so he'll be taking over his position. This means they'll be sure to pilot. I wonder who will take up the spot. Zoe is over the moon about it, but her happiness is quickly crushed when she arrives back at the ranch. Far from the warm welcome she was expecting from Alec when she came back, she's met with an empty house. He's left her pictures and a letter on the wall, wishing her goodbye. She doesn't let it dampen her spirits for too long though, as she tries to enjoy the little Christmas party her parents set up for her. Anya and Brock are there, and they try to comfort her through her heartbreak. Zoe asks the pair if they'll be willing to run the place as a bed and breakfast with her, recalling Anya's previous advice. They have experience running a diner, after all, so it would be perfect. The two of them instantly agree. A few hours into the party, Zoe's hopes are restored. Alec has shown up, completely unannounced. Heads turn to look at him, and Zoe runs up to him, heart full of longing. The next few minutes are heartfelt and emotional for both of them. Alec tells her how he felt lost when he left the ranch. He had to stop on the way and have an honest conversation with himself. A conversation about his hopes, dreams, future, and about the love he has for her. He came to discover that the grand adventure that he's been hoping to have all his life was right in front of him, Zoe. He wants a life with her. When she tells him that she has decided to stay, he looks at her like she hung the stars. The confirmation that she wants this as much as he does is all it takes for him to kiss her, full of passion and exultation. And that's how the couple finds each other at the end of the movie, under the northern lights, ready to start a new, promising chapter.